Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I want to talk a little bit more about my learning disability. For those of you who are new here, I will have a video linked down in the description. I did do a video a while ago talking about my learning disability and exactly, what it's called, what my diagnosis is, and all of that. But basically the brief rundown of it is that I have a math learning disability and I am a mechanical engineering student. So my situation is a little bit unique and I always mess up the pronunciation of it. I want to say it's Dyscalculia, something, I don't know. I always just refer to it as my learning disability. I apologize if that's like an offensive term. I don't know if people would take offense to the word disability. That's just how I've always referred to it. Sometimes I just call it my math issue because that's basically what it is. But basically in this video, I just want to talk about some things that kind of go along with having this learning disability and some things that I struggle with and things that I live with on a day-to-day basis that other people might not know about. Because when I say I have a learning disability in math, people just assume, oh, you can't do math, when really that's not it at all. It's not that I can't do math, it's just I learn in a different way than the standard person, and it takes me a lot longer to absorb the information. I use very different study methods than most people use when learning math. I struggled tremendously with algebra. I took pre-algebra, I think 3 times. I took college algebra 4 times. As the math got harder though, it started making more sense to me. So, once I got up into my actual engineering classes, those made perfect sense. I don't know why, that's just the way my brain is wired. Now, currently I am in Calculus 1 and I have no problems with that at all. I have really good grades in that class. I don't know how that happened, but that's just the way my brain works. So it's not like, oh, I just can't do math at all. That's not what it is. Things are just different for me when it comes to numbers and all of that. And this is something that I'm not shy about. I've always been very comfortable telling people, about this. It's not something that I am, ashamed of, and I don't think anyone should be. I can't change the way that my brain is wired. That's just who I am. So that's why, I have no problem making these videos. I have no problem answering questions. Like, I'm more than happy to, help out, if somebody else thinks that they may have it, or if you need resources or like information on where to go and get tested for a learning disability, I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. So yes, but other than the fact that my study tips and everything that I do to actually learn math is completely different than most people, other things that I do differently, or other things that are just like I struggle with, I guess. I have really bad issues with spatial awareness. And this is something I've always had my whole entire life. Before I even knew about the learning disability, I never have the ability to tell like how much space I take up in the atmosphere, or when I'm driving, I drive a very small car for a reason. I, under no circumstance, can drive a big car. I just constantly feel like I'm gonna go off the road. And it's just, I don't know why. That's just something I've always had. I don't see it going away anytime soon. That's something, and I've learned to live with it. It's not a big deal to me, but I know other people sometimes are like, oh, like, you can't drive a big car, or, I can't judge distance at all. If you ask me like, how far is it from here to the gas station? And I'll be like, oh, 5 miles. When in reality, it's like 1.2 miles. Like, I can't judge distance at all. And sometimes it's just kind of humorous because it's like, like, don't ask me because I can't help you. I struggle a lot with recipes because of the measurements. So fractions in particular is one that I cannot do at all under any circumstance. I never could do them. I struggled with them a lot in elementary school. It's just something I never grasped. It's something that I think my brain just totally blocks out. So I struggle a lot when it comes to measuring things and, making sure that things are correct Even when it comes to like tracking my meals and my Fitness Pal, I always have to like double check that I have the correct number of servings and the correct, you know, weight and all of that, and double check it, because there are times when I'll mean to say like, oh, I had, you know, 1 serving of almond milk, but in reality I will have actually entered it on accident as like 2.5 servings. I don't know how that happens. So I always have to double check everything and just make sure that, you know, I don't skip over things like that. So that's something that I do all the time. So one thing that I'm actually really, really good at, and I don't know if this is purely coincidental or if this is part of my learning disability, but I'm really, really good with patterns and seeing patterns, I guess, if that makes sense. So I'm really, really good at like budgeting and finance, because to me it's all a pattern. And you know, like you say, okay, every week I spend $75 on groceries, like that to me is a pattern that makes sense. You know, I can figure stuff out like that way easier than, you know, I like to think that I should know how to do, because, you know, you would assume like, oh, if you struggle with math and numbers, that kind of stuff wouldn't make sense to you, when in reality it makes really, really good sense to me, and it's something I can do effortlessly. You know, like monthly bills, things like that, just, you know, all of that stuff, I have no issue with that at all. And I don't know where that comes from. That is something that has always baffled me. Another thing that I am really, really good with is memorizing random sets of numbers. And this is something that I have always struggled to wrap my head around. I've always struggled with algebra because of the fact that I can't memorize formulas. Like stuff like calculus and like trigonometry makes way more sense to me, because I feel like you're following a pattern rather than just memorizing things. And maybe that's not the case, but that's how my brain interprets it. So, but for some reason, anything that's not directly related to like math, I can memorize other numbers like really good. Like I have my bank account number and routing number memorized off the top of my head. I have my debit card number memorized. I have my Cash App card number memorized. I have about half of my credit card number memorized. I remember random things, like if I go to someone's house like twice and I see their car in the driveway, I will literally remember their address and their license plate number. Not because I'm trying to, because that's creepy, but literally just because my brain like holds on to random sets of numbers for no reason. I don't know. It's so random to me. Like I remember things like that, but I literally can't remember like basic algebraic formulas. I have no idea why, but that's something that I always thought was really interesting. So another thing, like the way that I tell time on a regular clock. So I know some people that have this learning disability and even dyslexia as well may struggle with telling time on a regular clock. Now, this is something I've never struggled with per se, but I will say that I do it very maybe differently. I don't know. What I mean by this is like, okay, so picture a regular circular clock. So if it's like, let's say for example, if it's like 2:20, I don't just look at the clock and say, oh, it's 2:20. I have to look at the small hand first. So I'll say, okay, it's 2. Then from there, for the minutes, I do it first. I start by the half hour, reading it that way. Then I count either forwards or backwards in increments of 5. So I would say, okay, it's 2. Then I would look down to where it would be the 30 mark. Then I would say, okay, it's not quite there yet. So I would count backwards by 5 twice. So I would say, okay, 2, 25, 20 is where the long hand is. So I'd say, okay, it's 2:20. And that might sound crazy to somebody else. Like, I don't know, but that's how I've always done it. That's what makes the most sense to me. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, these like little quirky things, because I realize like most people probably don't do things the way I do them. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I thought it was kind of funny. Like certain things like that, because those are things to me that I do every day that I don't even think about. And I'm like, to other people that might sound totally insane. So Yeah. And also I just want to say too, like, I know not everyone with this learning disability has the same experience that I do. It's vastly different from what I've seen just from talking to other people with this disability. So that's why I said, like, some people can't tell time at all on a regular clock. I can, but that's just how I do it. Some people really struggle a whole lot with math and, you know, math classes. For me, I can do the engineering classes with no problem whatsoever. The hardest class for me, literally no joke, was college algebra. Like, literally, hands down. All the other classes are like nothing compared to that. I don't know why, but that's just the way my brain works. The things that you would think would make sense don't, and the things that you would think, oh, that might be difficult for her to learn, in reality is the stuff that's way easier for me to learn, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much why I wanted to make this video. I really can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now. We talked about clocks, we talked about measurements and fractions. Now time though, I can't judge distance to save my life, but I can judge time. So if someone says, like, oh, let me know when it's been 5 minutes. Like, I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff. I just can't judge distance. I don't know why. Again, this makes no sense. There really is no like rhyme or reason to any of this, which I've learned throughout my whole life. You know, certain things, like I said, certain things that I would think I would be bad at, I'm actually really good at, and vice versa. So I don't know. I think that's everything I had for this video. Those are my little quirky things that you guys may not know about my learning disability and what it is like to live with one. Yeah, I think that's everything. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Bye guys.